I've been playing WWF and WWE games ever since the NES. Back in the day, I had WrestleMania on the NES, which, I mean, it really wasn't a wrestling game. Like, it just had wrestlers in it. It played more like a beat 'em up game. But as time went on and the popularity of WWE started to rise, you ended up getting all these games. It seemed like every year a new WWE game came out because that's pretty much how it was for many, many years. Updated rosters, changing up some things, adding in new match types, completely changing the controls. This is all commonplace within the WWE games. And there's really so many pro wrestling games that have come out within the past 20 years that some of them are going to fall through the cracks. Some of them are going to be a bit more obscure than the others. But you wouldn't think that a WWE game would be considered obscure. You wouldn't think that a WWE game would be forgotten about because, well, what are you talking about? 2K15, something like that? No, I'm talking about an offshoot game that I think should have been the start of a franchise, but unfortunately, like I said, was forgotten to the lands of time. Today, we're going to talk about WWE Legends of WrestleMania, an offshoot game from the main WWE games that has a polarizing opinion, but maybe I can convince you that it's a good game. So developed by Ukes and published by THQ back in 2009, WWE Legends of WrestleMania was basically a way for players to take a nostalgic journey sort of through the history of WrestleMania. WrestleMania is, of course, WWE's premier event, and there's some of the biggest moments of all time that happen in professional wrestling happen at WrestleMania. Now, one of the things that is really a focus of this game is the golden era of the WWF, which is sort of the 80s and 90s era with these larger than life characters, and then sort of the transition into different characters more so based on reality. You got people like Hulk Hogan, the Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man Randy Savage, Yokozuna, The Rock, Stone Cold Steve Austin, and many, many more. Now, the first thing that strikes you about playing WWE Legends of WrestleMania is that the presentation of this game is definitely very different than what the WWE mainline games were at this time. The developers went with sort of a different visual style. There's like a weird sort of filter on the screen that gives it a more retro feel. The characters themselves, the wrestlers, are all more larger than life than normal in standard WWE games. The arenas themselves are all designed with different logos from appropriate eras, and it's really got a lot of attention to detail that I absolutely love about this game. Even the gameplay is completely different than the mainline WWE games were at that time. The WrestleMania Tour mode is basically a new thing where you relive some of the most significant matches from WrestleMania's history. So whether it's Hulk Hogan versus Andre the Giant, whether it's The Rock versus Stone Cold, you basically have the opportunity to step into the shoes of these wrestlers and potentially rewrite history. Some things you're supposed to do it exactly the way it happened. Sometimes you're supposed to do things different to have a different outcome from the original outcome that happened back in the day. I love this. I think it's super cool. And once again, the attention to detail is just absolutely insane because you have to do things like hit specific spots in order to basically like recreate what happened back in the day at that time frame. I think that's super awesome. This mode is, while it doesn't have a whole hell of a lot of replay value because sort of once you experience the road to the WrestleMania tour, you pretty much experience everything that the game has in that mode. I think it's still super fun to revisit this from time to time. There's lots of clips of the actual matches themselves too, which are sprinkled in, and I really like this mode. There's also a legend killer mode as well. You basically create your own wrestler and then you try to defeat the WWE Legends and basically make your own legacy. It's pretty challenging and you can unlock some additional content by going through this mode. Now, another main difference with this game is how the game actually plays. WWE Legends of WrestleMania is basically more so an arcadey style with a little bit of strategy mixed into it as well. You have this meter that you're constantly trying to build up, and once you build up to the third level of the meter, then you can hit your special attack. But each character has moves that are specific to them. It definitely plays out more like an 80s match up. Like there's lots of little intricacies that happen within the matches that actually make it feel more like the golden era of wrestling. You're not hitting springboard hurricane ranas all over the place. Something like a big lariat can just really change the pace of the match. And I really like that sort of stuff about this game. I think it sort of makes it a bit unique because it doesn't feel exactly like the WWE game from that time frame felt. And I feel like that helps separate the game. There's also managers in the game, and while managers usually do nothing in games, managers do a ton in this game. Mr. Fuji even throws the salt in your eye, or it hits you, or hits Yokozuna, and I think that's freaking awesome. I love little attentions to detail like that. And the fact that something like this hasn't been revisited, managers are still just kind of standing outside the ring, and maybe they'll say something to the ref or something, but there's really no interactivity between the manager and the wrestler in the ring. You know, it's definitely a product of a bygone era, just how wrestling is sort of playing out nowadays in general. Now, of course, beyond just the main modes that you have, there's multiplayer, which, I mean, I'm sure there's nobody playing the game online, but you could play with a friend, which is still super fun. I really like the roster of this game. Obviously, there are some omissions. Some things like songs have been changed up a little bit if there was like some licensing issues. Some characters are definitely missing from this because of whatever reason, but I feel like overall they did a really good job. You could actually incorporate WWE 2K8 people into the game as well, like the main roster, and import them in if you have a save file for the original for that game, and like have the modern roster on there. So if you want to do like Hulk Hogan versus CM Punk, like you could totally do that. It's kind of funny though, because the WWE 2K8 models are way smaller than the WWE Legends of WrestleMania models are. So it's very sort of jarring and off-putting when you're putting these two characters side by side. But it is something that, like, if you want to make your own dream match with the modern roster from that time frame, like, I guess you could do it. So why did this game sort of fly under the radar? Well, I think a lot of people were off-put by the control scheme of this game. It definitely felt a lot more arcadey than sort of what WWE games felt like at that time. And it had a distinct lack of like modes and options and stuff like that. Like, yeah, you can have your basic cage match and stuff like that, but there really wasn't a whole lot of meat on the bones of this game. It was more so a nostalgic trip, but nostalgic trips can be a very good thing. And this is a nostalgic trip that I love tripping on once in a while. That's kind of sounded weird. I actually own this game on both the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360 because, I don't know, I really don't know why I own both copies of the game, but I'm glad I do. It's a game that I pop in from time to time and just enjoy the silliness of it. Think of a bygone era of pro wrestling when characters were larger than life, and the game itself definitely encapsulates that feeling and kind of gives me a bit of a feeling of like childhood bewilderment when you would see these characters on your screen and just fall in love with them, really identify with them. Let me know in the comment section down below if you've ever played WWE Legends of WrestleMania, the forgotten WWE game, and if so, what did you think about it? Whether it was at the time or whether it's today in retrospect, whatever the case may be. Let me know how you feel about it in the comment section down below. And as always, guys, thank you for checking out this episode of Retro Stash. I hope you guys are enjoying these videos. There's more coming, so be prepared for them. And as always, I'll catch you guys on the next video. Later.